With the previous video I did, I hope you guys don't get the misconception that I'm playing the victim card. As I've said before many times in that video, that my suffering is pretty much insignificant compared to that of other atheists, and in general, just other people. One of the more interesting, and I have to say, a much more pleasant experience than that I described in the previous video was when I went to Bible camp. And this was when I was 10 years old or so, and it's essentially a camp where it's a normal camp. Normal activities like singing and dancing and arts and crafts and stuff, except with a few biblical undertones. Like, okay, you get a few songs about Jesus and God and worship. You might do a few arts and crafts related to events in the Bible. There's a documentary called Jesus Camp, which I think is hosted by A&E. That camp is, to say the least, revolting, but the Bible camp I went to was nothing like that. I liked Bible camp because it was a place where I could bond with my peers, where I could hang out with my cousins, and it was a place where I felt wanted and loved. Even though I was very much loved at home, I wanted more, and it was a place where I could get what I wanted if I really asked God and if I prayed hard enough. Yes, I was under some crazy delusions as a kid. So, being the selfish bastard that I was when I was a kid, Bible camp appealed to me. And yet, I object to Bible camp. Even though it was one pleasant experience in my life, I'd have to say that I cannot condone it. I cannot support it. And before you guys just make any assumptions about me right now, this is not because I just happen to be an atheist and I hate everything that's Christian and good. The one main reason I have to object to Bible camps is essentially because I believe that kids should not be influenced in any way to make a decision about religion until they are old enough to make that decision for themselves, and parents should not try and coerce them into making a one-sided decision. Bible camps essentially throw that all out of the bag and say, look, you're learning about only one faith and this one faith only. We propagate that this is the only true faith in the world and that everyone else are followers of false religions. So, unless kids are old enough to really understand what they believe in, then they shouldn't be forced into making a decision. And I'd say kids can reach that age when they're about, I'd say, 13 or 14. Now, you guys might think I'm nitpicking and saying, well, you still are showing a lot of bias, considering it's the kid's choice sometimes if they want to learn about Christianity. And this comes to my second main reason, is that you guys are not presenting a fair and open view of your own faith. Or at least that was the case when I went to Bible camp. All I heard about was Jonah, the story of Jonah being eaten by the giant fish, or the story of Adam and Eve, or just other things like that. I've never heard not one story about Abraham. I've never heard about Job. I've never heard about David. I've never heard about any of these people in Bible camp, for good reason, too, because Christians would rather shy away from these should I say, less preferable parts of the Bible. These parts are never shown in Bible camp. Why? With good reason, too, because these parts are atrocious. They talk about how God condones mass murder, genocide, rape, infanticide, theft, and just a whole litany of atrocity. And yet they only sell the good parts. They only sell the parts that can sell. The parts that kids can be easily told to understand, that is drilled into the minds of the child until they can recite it from front to back. Now, some people might counter by saying, well, kids can certainly ask about these parts of the Bible. We're not trying to hide it from them intentionally. Oh, really now? What if someone tried to sell you a car, for example, a used car, that had a bunch of banged up seats and had like really shitty mileage, and it said so on the advertisement, so you want to go buy this used car, and you find out it's missing an engine, and then you ask the guy, hey, I paid for this car, you never told me that there was a missing engine. And he tells you, well, you could have asked. For you economics buffs out there, this would be what you might call bait and switch selling. Essentially, you guys are selling one ideology, but presenting another. And that is, in fact, a form of fraud. Okay, these kids are learning good parts of the Bible, not the bad. What's so bad about that? And to that, I respond by saying, well, you guys gotta empathize a little, or at least look at it from an unbiased point of view. My final reason why we should not allow Bible camps to really exist, or at least you guys shouldn't send your kids to Bible camp, is because, let's just say you had a kid, if you don't already, and let's say that this kid is in a camp that promoted a certain ideology that's different from yours. Assuming that you are open-minded enough to let this kid go, and assuming that you are tolerant enough to allow this kid to pick for themselves what beliefs they should choose to retain, imagine what your reaction might be if you found out that this ideology promoted, okay, values of kindness and caring for others, but also ideas of cruelty, injustice, murder, genocide, infanticide, filicide, genital mutilation, rape, theft, bigotry to minority groups and non-believers, and just a whole bunch of other atrocities. What would you say then? I've already mentioned that what religious beliefs a person might or might not subscribe to is something that a kid should decide for themselves when they're older. But there are several other things that religion loves to talk about that, quite honestly, has no business talking about, and it influences kids in this manner when they should really decide these things for themselves. For example, the church, and with that, Bible camps, are very big on heterosexual marriage, not so much on gay marriage. And this is one thing that kids should really decide for themselves and come to terms with, is their own sexuality. That should not be something that is affected in any way by anyone, including Bible camp. So despite my rather pleasant experiences as a child in Bible camp, I still have to object to sending kids to Bible camp in the first place. Because I truly believe in giving kids the opportunity to search for themselves and to find out what personal beliefs they want to subscribe to. And that free reign should not be influenced in any way by anyone. And Bible camp is certainly not an exception, especially considering the fact that Bible camps usually present a very one-sided view of Christianity that does not reflect Christianity as a whole. Thanks for watching, and may the truth always be heard.